Welcome to Clear Mountain Livestream. I'm here with my good friend Ajahn Cunda. Ajahn, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Ajahn, could you give a little bit of your biography, how you came to the robes? You're obviously a Buddhist monk.
Sure, yeah. I just decided one day that it was time to kind of explore the monastic life after several years of interest. And had been, at that point, I was a mental health counselor. And so I quit my job, kind of, and did some worldly things and sold my possessions off, and then went up to Abhayagiri, and that was it. That was in 2005, late 2005.
Mm-hmm. Was it really just like that? So just so people know, this evening what we'll be doing, because this is live and we are in Seattle, Ajahn and I are receiving this coming Saturday. We've got our once a year Papa almsgiving ceremony. So we've invited our good friend Ajahn Cunda from Abhayagiri, then going up to Birkin. Ajahn Sudanta will be there. Venerable Jyotimanto, they're all here. Venerable Rahula and Ajahn Nispo might be joining halfway through the live stream. But people can just, for the purposes of this conversation, people can just put questions into the chat about whatever you're interested in.
And so we'll read them.
Yeah. And then we'll read them. Yeah. Just to maybe drill into one thing, when you were describing that, you said, okay, so one day just decided.
Well, I think it was, of course, it was leading up to it. I think I generally had an interest in a religious life fairly early on. I was kind of dissatisfied with the religion that I grew up with, which was Judaism. And I think for my other video, people might know my sister's a rabbi, so I wasn't really interested in that, and wasn't getting a lot out of the Jewish kind of religion that I was brought up in. So I just started getting introduced to books. I think the first one that started it was Hermann Hesse and Siddhartha, even though that's ironically a criticism of monastic Buddhism. I think his main message is you can do it yourself.
We did a whole video on that. Yeah. That's Ajahn Nispo's main vehicle as well.
Yeah. And so, but it just kind of gradually grew my interest in studying about Buddhism in college, after high school, after that kind of initial exposure in high school, and then kind of wondering what to do, but I didn't practice. I mean, I tried meditation out on my own a couple of times, but I didn't have a practice. So I went to China and Tibet for a couple of years, teaching English as a second language, and then sort of try to explore it from there to see if I could find some sort of monastic Buddhism that I was attracted to there. And then it was suggested I just come back. A friend of mine who had done retreats suggested come back and go do a long retreat, is what he suggested. So I did a Goenka retreat in order to get into a 1 month, like a 10-day Goenka retreat in order to get into a 1 month at Spirit Rock.
Yeah.
And I did that around 2002 or 2000. Yeah, something like that. And then, and then that's when I was kind of trying to figure out, how to do this. Started visiting Abhayagiri, I think around 2003. Did another 2 month retreat, a couple more 10-day retreats, I think. And then just put in my name on the Anagarika list and
become a monk.
Yeah, to kind of go up there and explore. And that was that. That was sort of how it all happened.
And now you've been in robes 18 years?
As a bhikkhu, I have 18 vasa, so this is 19 coming up. I guess the total time since that time is more than 20 years. So it's 2005.
All right. And how was that? I mean, coming from
2005.
Had you done any meditation before you did that Goenka 10-day
retreat? No, I mean, a couple of times I tried on my own. Didn't have any idea what I was doing. So.
And what was the effect? Was it? I mean, that's very much deep end for
the Goenka.
Yeah.
I think that's when I first sort of had a sense of okay, I understand there's something different than my perception of what experience really was, and I think it was sort of that just gap. I was trying to explain that the last few days to friends and family, that the sort of gap that you get when you're encouraged to watch or to, have some object you're watching or trying to understand. So like something in the body, for example. And I think with the Goenka Vipassana retreat, that was Anapanasati and then body scanning. And I think just eventually the experience of awareness, being aware of the experience of the body and the difference of just being brought along by trains of thought and the change of kind of getting unstuck from that for moments and being with the body and seeing that there was this awareness that could kind of encapsulate both, but also have pauses from that stuckness around like just being and experience around thinking and just thinking being all experience. And then when I pretty soon after did the 1 month retreat
At
Spirit Rock, then
Who
that
were the
was
teachers?
I remember Guy Armstrong and James Beres are who I interviewed with for the 1 month. Sally was teaching the retreat, Sylvia Borstein, and maybe Charlotte Rogel, I think. Those were the teachers.
2002 or 2003?
That was 2003, I believe. Might have been 4, but I think it was 2003. And then the next year I did a 2 month. I think it was 2004. Might have been 2005, somewhere around there.
Well, we got a couple audience questions and others can put things into the chat. The first one is...
Well, I just one thing about that Spirit Rock retreat is that actually was much more profound for me. And that was where, there were a lot more kind of quieter experiences of mine. I was like, wow, okay. Very pleasant and enjoyable. And I just thought, wow, this is not what I expected. And I don't want to live in the world anymore.
Really?
Yeah, after that first one, I was like, And I remember, like, I went back to, my girlfriend at the time, and I was at the door of our apartment, and I was just thinking, I should really break up and end this. Like I was
and then
there.
Go to the monastery, or what was?
Yeah. It was just like I should just end this and go. Like this is what I want. This is what I've been thinking about for part of my life. Like, and I didn't do that. I then entered the apartment and went back to being a boyfriend and
for another couple years.
For another year, not quite a year, and then eventually did follow that.
The monastic trajectory.
Yeah, and just kind of like, okay, I want to end this. And she ended it first.
That was my last partnership as well. It's ended by the other person. Makes things very easy.
Yeah, well, it was my fault.
Well, our first question is very broad, so I'm going to maybe make it a little bit more specific. So can you explain the development of wholesome qualities? And maybe just to make that more pocketed, could you explain the development of wholesome qualities as you've either seen them in yourself from before you first did that Goenka retreat, or before you went to Asia, and then through your time as a monastic, or as you've seen it in other people that you've known, like living at monasteries and spiritual centers for several decades now? You've seen other people go through that, and I'm curious if you could speak to those, specifically the development of wholesome qualities.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when we it's a very open sense of like, what are wholesome qualities? What is the difference between what we're experiencing as unwholesome qualities? And I think the first thing is identifying what's wholesome, what's useful, what's helpful. And that's the first aspect of it, is to really know, like, how is this helping me? I mean, the idea of karma and our karma is our actions. So the idea of just kind of intuiting or having a sense of what our actions are and what the result of those actions are. That's the vipaka karma. Then we get to have a taste of what's beneficial, what's not beneficial. So we can be told to do things a certain way and then follow them, like, don't kill any living beings or whatever it might be we're following. But when we've done things in the past, so for myself, having done things that were unwholesome or unskillful, then seeing the result that's occurred, it hasn't been beneficial. So it can be like speech, how I've conducted myself with speech, and then seeing that hasn't been helpful, or in ways of like criticizing others, or if there were a time I ever lied, or those things that and I mean, not that I did. I'm sure there were many times that I've lied. So not much as a monk that I can really put my finger on, but before I could see the results.
I was trying to think of some times when I stopped the train of thought. I didn't want to go too deep, but
that's good because you're restrained.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, this is the other person who I've seen grow in wholesome dhammas. So we've known each other. I was thinking about it because I was talking to your friend in the airport, and I was saying, oh yeah, we've known each other since you came to the monastery. I was there, and I was probably one vasa or so, because I'm 18, you're 16.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. So I would have been Samanera or first year bhikkhu, maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah. So we have stories with each other that were very funny. I won't repeat them, but they were very comical. And if one has been in a monastery and knew these kind of stories,
hijinks,
hijinks and kind of like
century. Yeah.
dukkha.
Yeah.
But actually seeing Ajahn Cunda now and he and Ajahn Nisabo interacting, I said, oh wow, this is different ways of being that I'm seeing both of them very mature, I would say, and also a maturity, a lot of maturity and growing up and seeing that things are taken. You're a little more serious,
okay.
Even though I hear kind of the joking quality sometimes in your Dhamma and everything, but there's definitely more seriousness and a little bit more Ajahn Pasano kind of. It's like using of distance or using of kind of boundaries, kind of like a sense of like being clear with your boundaries, being clear with like how you are with your speech and others, and that's good to see in a mature way, not in a good way, a wholesome way.
Mm.
So that's something I can see, and then also seeing how some of you have probably seen Ajahn Cunda and Ajahn Nisabo interact. They're not like
Tom and Jerry.
Two brothers that are like 5 and 7 and like throwing dirt in each other's faces. So it's very inspiring for me to see their beautiful speech and interactions and working out differences, because that's always going to come up in relation. That there's going to be some different views or different opinions, and they have to be worked out. And how they're worked out is much more of the skillfulness, seeing the skillfulness in action, versus like how I've seen it just doesn't always work out with two people kind of interacting and trying to communicate in ways that they're unskillful. So
well, it's all very nice, Ajahn. I want to say the same about you. Explain the development of wholesome qualities, because I think you make a very good point. As monastics in our tradition, we experiment with going to the monastery for some time, then we're allowed to stay longer, and then we ask to become a white robe trainee, and then we ask to become a novice, and then finally we ask to become a monk, and that whole process takes 2.5 years or so before we're able to become fully ordained monks. And for the first 5 years, we're very much just cloistered in the same monastery, so we're seeing each other in somewhat small spaces, like the monks' locker room, where we keep our stuff in the communal area. And it's a very tight place. It is like, it's not a physical pressure cooker. It's not literally a pressure cooker.
It's 6 feet across in one direction.
Yeah, we really do.
By about 20 feet long in the other, and then it gets even narrower.
Yeah, when you've got 10, 15 male monastics sharing the space. But then after those 5 years, we can kind of go in different directions. And
we get out of the room.
We literally get out of the room, leave the space, go to another monastery. And for me, I went to Thailand. You went to Canada.
Yeah, after a while, I stayed 8.5 years, so that was a bit unusual. Yeah, where most monks will be there 4 years before leaving. So years non-Antarctica novice, and then a couple of years as a monk. And the third year, they usually go away. Mm-hmm. I stuck around because I had some walking issues, some foot issues, so I had to resolve those with surgery.
Yes,
so that took a while.
And then we see each other from time to time, like every other year or every third year. And it is fascinating just to see we're living in this environment where everybody, what we're listening to, we don't very much for those first, 7 or more years, nobody has a device. We give up our phones, we give up our computers when we first go to the monastery. We give up our email addresses. There's like communal computers that are in one place. So we're very much...
Give up our old email address.
Our old email address.
Because we still, I mean, it's not like we completely cut off the world, but it's pretty sharp contrast.
Oh yeah, it's like a serious
especially old friends and family.
Yeah, very much a digital detox. And then, everything we're listening to Dhamma talks, several times a week. Plus, just for fun, we listen to Dhamma talks, and we're doing chanting, and we're memorizing chanting. All of it is about wholesome mental states and unwholesome mental states. So even the word wholesome mental state is not one that I thought about before I came to the monastery. And so we're living in this space where we're talking about it and we're listening to it, and maybe even at some point starting to give talks about it. So you see it. We see each other every couple of years. It's like you see your cousin who was born, 5 years ago, and then you see him 2 years later, and they've grown, a foot.
Yeah.
And it's like the same. You see growth in one another, because we start caring about. First, we learn what wholesome dhammas are, and then we start caring about them more and more. And it just, you're living in a very safe environment, an environment where people, everyone at Abhayagiri, where everything is sincere. Like, you could not say anyone who stays and remains there is not sincere. Like, that's like a baseline.
Yeah, and I think one thing about when we're talking about development of wholesome qualities is really making choices. So, I mean, these are choices that are open to us, like all day long. What do we choose to do? What do we choose to do with a mind state? What do we choose to do with saying something? What do we choose to do with having a sense of doing what the right thing is? And it could be like, how do we handle boredom, or how do we handle being excited about something, or feeling greedy? And so the question is like, I'm making a choice. Am I gonna not be greedy in this moment, or am I gonna kind of restrain from saying something that I don't think I should say? These are things that are coming up, and so the development of that is making the choices, and then the part of it, sometimes we don't make the right choice, and we kind of give into sort of more we call like a base defilement, or something where we just kind of like, well, I don't really want to do that, and we go ahead with something that isn't actually helpful for us. But the most important thing is, whatever we're doing when we make these choices, is we look at the result. That's the kind of connection we have, so that we're motivated then. Because if I don't look at the result, then I don't feel that motivation as much. Like, how was that to follow that kind of pathway towards something that I knew I shouldn't do, that wouldn't be helpful, I didn't think was helpful for me, and then I did it anyway. And then I saw, it didn't actually have good consequences. And then I can remind myself next time, well, you did that last time, so don't do it again, And then maybe one doesn't have a lot of restraint at that time and does it again. So it takes a lot of kind of falling over, picking oneself up, dusting oneself off, and then trying again.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like the self-learning from just falling over, but also at a monastery, or hopefully any kind of healthy spiritual community, you're also getting external mirroring. Especially with us, with Lumpur Pasano, I mean, he's just a very clear mirror to, and he will say, if we cross certain lines, or he'll very much point them out. So we certainly hopefully learn from our own tripping, and have teachers and friends to point out, okay, you're getting close, you're about to trip, so.
And also just the mirror of just seeing how a teacher like him behaves, or acts, or walks, talks, and those are these examples that we can follow, and then say, I want to be more like that. What was it? Remember the commercials? I want to be more like Mike, or something.
I want to be like Mike. Yeah. Use Nike.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, basketball player.
Yeah.
Next question. Good answer, Ajahn. Next question is specifically to you. Did you enjoy being a mental health counselor, and did you weave Dhamma into your work? Could you say more about that? What kind of mental counselor were you?
Yeah, I think it was something I learned. I learned a lot from, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I enjoyed it. I mean, I was moving into like what to do next. And so my question was, I was kind of worked at a law firm, was wondering about being a lawyer, and then I thought I don't want to do that after good enough or time enough in that environment. And then I said, well, this is something I've been studying and interested in, is like psychology and helping people and clinical psychology. And so I went to being a mental health counselor for 3 years. I did that in San Francisco. And then I thought,
shelter, or is it
no, it was called an acute diversion unit. So we received people who were coming from the hospital, usually in duress. They've almost always been like what's called 5150. So they had either presented to the police or been taken by the police, or presented to the hospital as a danger to themselves or a danger to others, or basically not unable to, in the same way, endanger themselves, take care of themselves.
Are they coming voluntarily or involuntarily?
So it could be either one. Oh, to the unit. Well, they were released to us, so it was always voluntary. And then they actually did. Some of them would leave the next day or move. I mean, it was a place for them to also settle. So some of them, it was pretty normal to want to stay for at least a day, but it would be usually a lot longer than that. A couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, sometimes for some of them. And so anyway, going back to the question, I learned a lot in the environment. I learned a lot in terms of trying to take care of people, figure out, but taking care of oneself was not easy in that environment. And I had actually decided to move into clinical psychology and try to get a PhD in that to be a therapist. But then after a few years, I was going to go do that. And after a few years of being a mental health counselor, I just decided being a monk was what I wanted to do, because I was doing all these meditation retreats. I would say that like it was hard to not be burned out in that job. It was quite it was difficult to endure, because although there was a good amount of time that I had off, the time on was pretty intense, and there were some people with pretty heavy problems in terms of like personality disorders and so. But I really appreciated it. It was more like kind of learning about samsara and the difficulty of being in samsara, and just a lot of turnover of people who would come and be suffering, and then they just kind of kept coming over and over and over again. A lot of addiction. And,
That's hard.
A lot of suffering, a lot of pain. And really witnessing people who couldn't get out of their predicament and kept cycling over and over and over again. So those were real palpable experiences of samsara.
So, John, I didn't know a lot of that. Next question. What signs would show that a practice is genuinely maturing, not just becoming another identity or philosophy?
It's exactly what the first question goes back to. It's the development of wholesome Dhamma. So if one is finding that, if I'm finding that my own, like there's more peace arising, there's less greed, there's less, and sort of more desire for generosity and kindness and giving. If there's less hatred, aversion, anger, and I'm actually feeling that kind of compassion towards others and wishing well for others. Those are real signs that there's development of mind, there's understanding of Dhamma. The other characteristic around that, we talk about the kind of sense of delusion, is that there does feel like there's less confusion, less kind of doubt and confusion, and I'm not sure what should I do, if this is working, or kind of like doubt in oneself, and so there's more confidence, I think, that arises. So that's sattva, faith. There's a feeling I can have, oh, it's working. This is actually, so I feel like, oh, I can keep going. I can keep doing this because it's making a difference. So I think those are the signs that one can have that we're going in the right direction. If it's the opposite, one's feeling a lot more those things, greed and anger, or like, let's say you fall asleep.
Anger?
and hanger, too. How do you handle that? Um, but the sense of like, if you're meditating and you're just falling asleep in every meditation, then get up. You don't like kind of just allow that to continue. You have to do something about it. And similarly with like how to curtail laziness and seeing that one is able to build a skill in cutting through our own desire to kind of get away from it and not do and just like tomorrow and procrastinate, and we learn to be more confident. Those are all signs that we're moving in the right direction. And basically, like, it is a very long process dealing with greed and desire and craving, and especially attachment, not wanting to let go. It's something that we will see in ourselves if it's working. Like, oh, normally I'd want to do this or that. I'd want to grasp onto that, and I was able to let go of that, and so that can be very surprising. And when it is, it's like, oh, that worked. Or that's coming from somewhere. So we also want to investigate Yoni Somani Sakara, the origin of things, the understanding, the sort of wise attention to how things are occurring for us, or the right way to pay attention to something. Like seeing some things as, if we're tending to kind of make things permanent, or like be upset when something changes, then to understand more like, no, this is the nature of things, this is changing, and then being okay when they do change. Those are ways that we can see that we're actually progressing in our practice.
We have praise for Ajahn Cunda. It says, what I find refreshing about Ajahn Cunda is his personal honesty in sharing that. It really helps us all, makes it all very human and relatable, and helps us to see how we learn in progress.
Oh, thanks. Very nice. I appreciate your appreciation.
Nice. Thank you, Bill. Next question. How do we get rid of doubt about the teachings? Sometimes the thought arises, if this isn't the path, or if this doesn't lead anywhere, I'm afraid because I love this path.
Yeah, just don't worry about it. Just, I mean, in a way, you're seeing what I've been trying to illustrate is, are you seeing that there is benefit to your practicing? And if there's benefit, is it a question of there's not enough benefit? I should be getting more. It's more of like just trusting in that sense that something is helping you, because the last thing you said was you love the Dhamma and you love the path. So if you love it, there's no need to doubt it, because there's this care and love of what it is that you're doing. Doubt is an experience, and it's not something that I'm taking lightly in saying this, but in just knowing that it's there and present. So, let's say there is that thing, like, the first thing is to know that doubt is just sort of like it's quite a poison for the mind. It actually like just moves the mind into an inability to move forward. So it's this kind of just like, it just builds massive amounts of traction and inability to kind of change or move within the mind, or to even learn, because we're just stuck in this circular flow of questioning. I'm not sure, and I don't know. And then we start to trust in the questioning as resolving that. And so then the problem is that then if you trust in that, it's not going to go anywhere, right? It's just going to keep revolving around. Well, if I ask more questions, I'll get the answer. And that's not what comes up with doubt. So what do? Is we just know that as doubt, and we see like, well, if I know that this is doubt, then I can step back from it. I can move away from it. And then I have the ability to kind of move on from it and get back to kind of like, well, just watch my breath. And it's like, but how do I know that watching my breath is the right thing to do? Oh, that's doubt. That's just doubt. What does it feel like? What does doubt feel like? Well, again, it's very uncomfortable. It's arresting. There's usually a lot of anxiety associated with doubt. And we can't answer the questions to doubt. That's the other thing. It's like, how do I know if I'm doing this right? Well, we can know through, again, the wholesome Dhammas arising, but it also, we're never going to kind of be able to answer the questions of doubt, because that's the whole point of them, is they're just kind of, they're ongoing, they're sort of entering into samsara. So just recognizing doubt is the most important aspect, I think, of how to deal with it. Once it's recognized, we don't have to follow it. Again, we come back to that choice. I don't have to do this to myself, kind of keep going into this never ending, I'm not sure, and what should I do? And on it goes. So once we put that away, we sort of put it away, and then we can kind of come back to what it is we're supposed to be doing, the Buddha is telling us to do. And then again, we just look at those results. So the difference between kind of a doubt that doesn't go anywhere and the kind of more doubt that's helpful is like doubting in those things that aren't useful to us, right? Like, has it ever gotten me anywhere to kind of think like, oh yeah, I want to lie to this person because I don't want to have to deal with telling them the truth. It's going to be too harmful or hurtful or difficult for me, or whatever the reason is. And then we might kind of see like, yeah, that's not a good movement of mine. That's not. So we doubt kind of, that's the kind of skepticism we want to have. My belief in that, I should not trust that. So there's sort of a healthy skepticism we can have with what it is we're doing. I mean, that one might not be a great example, but it's kind of being skeptical in the right way. Rather than being doubtful about the teachings, we're skeptical around what it is we're trusting, like our own greed or something like that. Or like, no, it is right for me to be angry. And then we go ahead and we start to grasp onto that, and we get angry with someone. But the skeptical aspect of that is like, I don't think I should trust that. I should probably doubt that voice that's telling me to kind of move towards that thing that's gotten me in trouble so many times.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, you're pointing to these two different types of doubt, and you do see it framed in the suttas as such. I mean, doubt is the fifth hindrance, but you also have in the Kalama suttas, where the Buddha says, Kalamas, you're doubting that which is worthy of doubt. And one of my favorite framings in the Zen tradition is about faith, or saddha. What is faith? The response is skill in doubt. And I think that's a good thing to point to. I mean, that's pointing to the skillful type of doubt, how to ask good questions, and to realize the flavor of the doubt. Like sometimes those two that you were describing, like the healthy skepticism for things which are worthy of skepticism, has there's like a clarity to it. Okay, this feels like a reasonable question that could have an end. Whereas, as you're saying, like, you can't doubt your way out of doubt in that negative sense. Whereas if it's a healthy, very good, well-framed question, okay, this question actually could have a good answer if I ask the right person, or if I ask myself at the right time. Okay, this is a good question. That's skill in the wholesome type of doubt. And that, for me, it has a very different flavor. Like, there's a different, almost like color of the mind, or a different way that the voice talks, or a different intensity with which the voice speaks. And it's almost like like Gollum, like the doubt which has no end is like this kind of gnarly voice, which is almost like attacking us. Whereas the other voice might be a very clear voice, like a bell-like voice. And so, yeah, I think that's great advice, to just pay attention to how it feels and the result. Is this wholesome doubt, which might lead to the end of doubt? Or is this a doubt which is just going to spin itself out and never end?
And I think that kind of spinning doubt, people probably know what they're getting into with that. It's like, it's anxiety provoking. It doesn't really go anywhere. And it kind of creates worry, like, how can you actually say, like, am I doing it right? It's possible to kind of know by examining one's sort of skill or the result of that, but it's also really easy to just kind of keep going and going, ongoing, and it's a never-ending kind of questioning that one can have with oneself.
So here's a good question about, for some people, I think it is a doubt, specifically about the monastic vocation. So monastics don't live alone. Is that right? Many of us live alone and are celibate. In a way, it may be easier as a layperson living alone with more time to meditate and practice. So this is something I've heard a lot from, especially in America, like the perspective, maybe they visit somebody visits a monastery once or twice, and or goes on a day where there's like a big festival, and then they think that monastic life is cramped and dusty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you respond to someone with this perspective? Do you think there's truth to it, or is it partial truth? Or
Yeah, I think there's partial truth to monasteries being cramped and dusty. One can be in a monastery that where you can find like, oh yeah, this is too busy for me, or this isn't helpful. But I think the teaching that we have is like goes back to I think what Lumpur Cha would quote often is everything is teaching us. So I think it's a balance of what one experiences in a monastery, living in a monastery, and having that attitude that everything is teaching us. For example, I could say like, oh, I don't really. I would rather just meditate rather than sew my robes. I would rather meditate than go clean my kuti. I'd rather meditate than go help a junior monk with whatever, learning how to sew. I would rather just go meditate rather than, on and on the list can go. And that attitude is very kind of annihilationist and aversive. So I think that one learns that there's times that, generosity, this is a good time to develop some generosity. And it's not always through meditation that one can develop these things. So sitting practice is not, it's sort of like, I hate to say it in a skeptical way, but just like good luck. If you want to just live in your apartment alone and be celibate and not have contact with people and meditate, because ideally that sounds great. Ideally that sounds like it would work, but show me your arahantship. So in a way, it doesn't tend to work out that way. It tends to be something that's very difficult without others, without the reflection of others, without having seeing other people, or we just get myopic and there can be a blindedness about the way that one is sort of following one's own likes and dislikes and views and opinions. And we do need, I think, that experience of other people, not necessarily in a monastery, but experience of others and others who have been on the path perhaps longer and can point out to us when we are not seeing things clearly. And we were just talking about that before, having this Zoom,
speaking with a few other monks. Yeah, no,
Google Meet.
It is very difficult.
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube.
Whatever corporation it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Same corporation. Google.
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
But no, it's difficult. And people, it's very easy if you're not living with others to spiritual bypass that, to really think that you're kind of at the cutting edge of your practice. And for some, like I have met people who I feel like could do that well. And that maybe a lay life, a celibate lay life could be real cutting edge Dhamma practice for some people. But yeah, when you live next to people, it's like, two great similes that come to mind for a good training monastery, like Vaigiri, are it's either like a pressure cooker or like a rock tumbler. And sometimes it feels like it is like we are potatoes inside of a pressure cooker, inside of a rock tumbler, like all at the same time. And but you do see like sharp edges do get kind of worn off over time. And so yeah, I think your advice to try it, and don't give up all your friendships, because your friendships, the Buddha said, Kalyanamitta, spiritual friendship is the whole of the holy life. Because certainly my relationship with Ajahn Nisabo, who's the monk who I live around most, we are daily mirrors for each other. And there's a lot that I just had no idea about myself, just finding out when you bump up against, or when you are forced to not follow your own agenda. So
yeah, and living in a monastery comes with enormous challenges that one wouldn't see living alone. It's sort of like in a certain way, like if one is on one's own, you can have a lot of peace and calm and clarity, and then all of a sudden, someone says good morning to you the wrong way and your head explodes. So it's like, but you wouldn't know that necessarily if you're living alone. You wouldn't necessarily have that come up for you. So there might be a sense of like, oh, I'm a very peaceful person. I'm a very calm person. I don't get perturbed by anything. But then, that would be reinforced by just living alone, I think, and not having experiences that might actually kind of cause that aversion to arise. So then all of a sudden you might be exposed to that and see, oh, I guess I wasn't as far as I was in my practice. That's the whole adage. Like, if you think you're enlightened, try to go home and live with your parents again.
There's a nice Ajahn Jayasaro quote that when you live by yourself, the highs can be higher.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have more time alone. And if you've got good samadhi, you've got meditation, then yeah, you might be able to experience higher states of bliss, maybe for periods of time. And he said the lows can be lower. And if you live with others, like, yeah, we've got a monastery to keep up with, and maybe not as much time to sit and cultivate blissful minds for some parts of the year outside of retreat, but during retreat certainly have the time. But then low states, you don't go as low, you don't dip as low as well, because you've got friends who are kind of buoying you up, and friends who are cheering you up, and friends who notice before you often do that actually you're looking a little bit depressed. Is there, would you want to have some tea together and
go for a walk? But just the sense of developing things, as I mentioned, that you wouldn't necessarily have an opportunity to develop if you're just living alone.
Yeah, like right speech.
Yeah, right speech and caring for others, generosity, kindness, all of these things, they're in relationship to other people.
Yeah. And we are biased. Like, it is possible. We've seen a lot of people come in and out of the monastery,
mm-hmm.
and it's possible that we're not meeting the hermits for whom it's really, really working out well. But that said, we do meet some number of hermit-esque people who come to the monastery, and we are their first, we're the ones who are receiving the jagged edges of their...
Yeah, that can be hard too.
Yeah. All right, next question. Respected Ajahn, what is the most frequently asked question you have received over the years of teaching? Bows respectfully.
I don't know. It's the one, kind of, why did you become a monk? So
yeah, that's.
So that's kind of the most common question, and you just hopefully, I when I'm kind of don't kind of experience. Oh no, here we go again. Like, same question. Okay. When I answer it in a good way, it's more like kind of having a sense of nuance. Well, why did what's new about, what can I add new to this, to answer this question? What can be new or interesting? So I did want to add from the last question that someone might have said, like, well, I heard you're going to Birken and you're going to be in retreat for a year and really not interacting with community much at all.
And you're celibate.
And I'm celibate, and I'll be receiving alms food and going back to my kuti and spending a lot of time alone. But the first thing I asked Ajahn Cunda, who's the abbot at Birken, was, can I come see you weekly or every 2 weeks and kind of talk with you about my practice? And that was like, the first thing I thought of is like, I don't want to actually just be in total isolation. I want to have that reflection and have an experienced Dhamma practitioner, talk to someone to talk to and someone to kind of give advice to or receive advice from, and also to kind of have that mirror of reflection, like, I think you're obsessing about this too much, or maybe you should try something different. Might not be working, whatever. So at the same time, I think there's periods that they're helpful to be by ourselves and to kind of seek that solitude. And other times, I think it's kind of good to see, I think I've done that enough. And now I'm going to be in a more engaged or communal atmosphere. So I can also test out, like, well, what did I learn? How was that for me? Because if I keep going on these long retreats and then every time I come out, I get agitated and angry with other people, what am I learning? So that I get angry and agitated with other people. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yep.
Okay.
I think we got a lot of questions.
All right.
Ajahn, can you please explain how we should learn to stand up for ourselves in this competitive world while also developing the practice of non-self?
Yeah, that was a sort of or something I was addressing, I think, in Portland. One is sticking up for oneself. Yeah, it's. I think it would be a disservice to ourselves to use the Buddhist teachings to say, like, well, it's okay for me to just experience being abused and used by people, and just to know what that's like. So I'll just go with it. I'll just take the abuse and let people use me. Um, rather I think a wrong grasping of self, or trying to see like, if I kind of abuse or annihilate or punish the self, then I'll understand it. So that would be kind of a wrong view of sort of how one might look at helping us get a better perspective on self. Whereas, it's important to know, like, more so, like we've been talking about the development of mind and the wholesome qualities of mind. So if we're dealing with other people in a situation that is, we are clearly seeing as harmful for ourselves, then we want to, as I said, know that clarity. We want to be very clear with that and understand, okay, this is not a helpful situation. The Buddha talks and encourages us to be with Kalyanamitta. He says, don't hang out with fools, don't spend time with them. And what are fools? Those are people who are not acting in ways that they're showing they don't have a development of mind. They're toxic, they're unhelpful to you, or they're not kind. And so these are the fools the Buddha said don't spend time with. And people can do that. They say, oh, I don't have many friends, I'll hang out with these people because I don't have other friends. These people, they're sort of good enough, even though they abuse me or are unkind. So that's in terms of sticking up for oneself, it's not like creating self out of that, but it's like, what is helpful for my own mind, right? Is it helpful to see that, like, when we're around kind people, we feel good about that, and we have that kind of mirror of like, oh yeah, this is beautiful behavior, and I want to emulate that, and I want to do more, want to be more kind, just like they are. Because if we're going the other direction and we just want to be mean, and mean like our friends are mean, then that's not a helpful direction to go in. So it's important to learn how to kind of skillfully deal with people if we're being abused or people are being unkind to us, and that's through right speech. What is timely? What's the right place? What's the right way of addressing it with that person? And do we even need to? Is it possible to just extricate ourselves from that relationship? So those are all ways, I think, to try to relate, like just asking myself, what's the skillful thing to do here? Because believe it or not, in monasteries, you can get into some kind of, monks, and I have gotten into some difficult sort of relations to other people, where there's conflict, where there's some difficulty and there's misunderstanding. Or there's something I said that was unskillful and I have to address that later on and figure out, like, why did I say that and how can I make amends for it? And then there's sometimes one can't actually make amends with that person, or can't make it work out. So the sense of like, well, if I get into a situation where I can just make sure everybody's okay with me, then everything will be all right. Well, good luck, because I don't think there's anywhere where that's possible. We're always going to have people who misunderstand us or criticize us. And what we can do is take care of what they've criticized, see if it's true. And then if it is, we can do something about it. If it isn't, then we don't need to do anything about it. We can just say, okay, well, that's their perception of me. And I can let that be. And if they're a fool, they're a fool. I don't need to be so concerned about it. But also to let go with the fact that sometimes you can say you're sorry, and it doesn't matter how many times you say it. The person's going to hold their view of you, and that's their own dukkha. So I always like to kind of ask myself, like, why do I need to make their karma my karma? They can keep their karma. That's their home. I'll just take care of mine. Because if I've tried to make amends and deal with an unskillful situation and it's not working, the other person just, for whatever reason, whatever their own grasping is, and I see that clearly, I have to let that go. Because the moment that we think that making everybody like us is like our goal in life, or that's what's most important, we're just going to suffer. So letting go of that is incredibly important and very liberating. We can't please everyone, but especially like if we're facing abuse or difficulty from others, to just know, like, that's their karma, and I don't have to make it my own or take it personally.
Can I tell a funny story about you?
Yes.
Okay. So Ajahn Cunda was, I think, the work monk at Abhaya. This was years ago. We'll say it's
Yeah.
years ago. And
Was
Ajahn
it?
Cunda was on a crew where he's asking everyone to carry lots of loads of concrete.
Yep.
Hey, Doug. Asking everyone to carry lots of loads of concrete. And I was a little bit slower in my carrying of the concrete. And Ajahn Cunda
I
said,
kicked you.
No, there was no physical violence, but there is a sutta where the Buddha says one should think, if when is asked to do something by a friend in the holy life, they should think, why should I do what I want to do when I can do what this venerable wants to do? And so they do what their friend wants to do, and then they blend like milk and water, and they think, okay, we're two in body, we're multiple in body, but one in mind. So you took that sutta as you were trying to get everyone to carry more concrete bags. And you said, Kovila, why should you do what you want to do when you could do what I want you to do? And I had no answer. I think I just ended up carrying a little
It's
bit
so
faster.
funny to be quoted these things because, like, since I've been traveling a bit, people are telling me in 10 years ago you said this to me, and I was like, ooh, okay, well, I guess. And then usually now I'll add something to it. I'll say okay, well, that hopefully that was said with some wisdom, but I hope I would have also said this or whatever. But that was a very big learning experience for me. Not just that, but one of the things was I have had some damage to my feet, and so I wasn't always able to carry a lot of things. At that time I was surprisingly able to do a lot, but I was the manager of all this big project. Like, I took on too much. We were building 4 kutis to a very high level, high standard, covered walking paths, and I was really like absolute project manager with even the contractor and learning building stuff and permits and all this stuff. And yeah, a lot of unskillful experience. A lot of kind of not really making the right choices about how to deal with some of the monastics. I was absolutely determined no one would work in the afternoon. I'll just have them work in the mornings. But that didn't stop complaints. And it really, I saw that how much I was holding, because there was a lot of stress. I had to make sure all of the materials were at each site before the workers ran out of the materials because they were being paid, and that was the sort of nightmare. So there was a lot of stress.
You were working a lot.
And I was working for myself. I was working 8-10 hours, a day. But it was a very difficult way of kind of managing both my own stress and not letting that bleed over into managing all of these other people who were helping.
Yeah.
I did try to not have too many monks working with me because I was concerned with that this was happening, and I did want to kind of keep down the sort of complaints. But I had, in so many people helped, and it was very very it was very much a huge learning experience for me in terms of how to manage a project.